Martin, thanks a lot for joining us. I'd love to learn more about your solution, but also learn how you're growing your company and maybe some insights and tactics on how other B2B companies can grow. So if we could start with just mentioning who you are, who you work with, and what you do for them, that'd be great.
Thank you a lot for the call and your time. So my name is Maarten and I'm running Limecraft. Limecraft is a company specifically targeting the audiovisual sector. So our customers are video professionals, which can be television production, film production, and more corporate content, which has been produced in cinema grade quality as well.
What do you do for them? What is the solution? Can you describe a use case, perhaps, just to make it easier for the audience to understand?
Sure. What we do for our customers is, in 2 words, managing and processing video files. That's 3 words. But so we're in the core. We are, if you want, a video asset management system. We make sure the right fragments of video get into the hands of the right people at the right point in time. Imagine you are doing a shoot. You're doing a shoot of a conference. You will be coming home with 5-6 hours of raw material. Then you would probably make a storyboard by pre-cutting some fragments out of there, and then you would need to transfer the pre-cut or the rough cut to the editor. So Limecraft takes care of the entire logistics from just after the shoot. We're processing the raw material. We're doing QC. We're helping partially automating the rough cut, and then we take care of all the transfers back and forth post-production. That's a bit the wider scope. If you're asking for a use case, it can really scale down to the operations of podcasters, like the sort of interview we're currently doing, but it can scale up as well to really large production. Some of the more modern reality shows, those guys produce like 200 or 300 hours of raw material per hour per episode. It's massive. And the cheaper the cameras become, the more material they will shoot. And then the problem moves to post-production in the cutting. And there's where Limecraft comes in. We're using a lot of artificial intelligence to automatically help them transcribing and logging, earmarking, and selecting the content. So that's really what Limecraft is about.
If we can switch to talking about how you're growing the company, and if you can tell me, if you can share how you're growing, or what you've tried, what tactics you're using, what's been working out best for you, that'd be super interesting.
Like many software as a service startups, scale-ups, it was an interesting trajectory. Meaning that the first 7 or 8 years were incorporated in 2010. The first 7 or 8 years were not fun at all. It was like trying to find the proper product market fit, etc., etc. We can talk a lot about it, but it's all about timing, The media business, more than many other industries, is quite conservative. And taking into account that we're offering a software as a service type of solution, it was really problematic to find the first early adopters willing to outsource the management of their media to a third party. It was difficult. It was challenging. It was not before, just a few years ago, where there is so much pressure on cost structure of producers that they were really obliged to go off the beaten track and look for creative solutions, engage in co-production, and that's the point where they decide and they say, hey guys, we're not going to solve this using Dropbox, are we? And then they're looking for a collaboration platform. And Limecraft is like a social network for media professionals. They use it to easily share and make available their content, so it's really convenient. So it is all about timing. Things started to change in 2015, 2016, and then all of a sudden we saw accelerated. We saw the number of users The volumes, they were interesting. We saw it dramatically increasing. And now we're at the pace where we see 15% per month growth. Just by going to film festivals, proper conferences, trade shows, and we see our user bases, revenues, all parameters are like growing minimum of 15%.
And in terms of scaling, how do you approach that? Is it more trade shows? Can you tell me a little bit about your sales approach? How do you reach out and connect with somebody? Because I'm assuming it's not like an email or a cold LinkedIn connection. How do you do that?
We'll get back to the email in just a minute. Thank you for this question. It's a very good one. While I was sitting at the other side of the table, so I served as a R&D manager at VRT, the Belgian public service broadcaster. And to procure technology at that time, I went to trade fairs as a buyer. And when we incorporated Limecraft, we did what we were comfortable of doing, having a big booth at a trade show. Now, that doesn't really scale. Trade shows are largely a waste of time. There are a lot of tourists out there. And there's one more message I would like to share with fellow software as a service business owners. When you're at the price point of between 2,000 and 5,000 euro per month or dollar per month as a starting point, it's too cheap to send an expensive sales in the field and to accept a sales cycle of 12 months. It just doesn't scale, and trade shows are in that category. However, it's too expensive to just have a purchase order based on a quote on the back of an envelope. So you're like in between typical software as a service with a good website and some search engine optimization. So as a sales strategy, we had to do both. We had to have an excellent website. People have to understand what we do just by browsing the website. Good email marketing, a proper presence on social media. And then when people sign up for a trial, that's the point where sales kicks in, but it will be primarily inside sales. When people sign up for a trial account, we should be able to approach them either by email or by telephone within 15 minutes. And chances are very likely that we sign up a new customer if we're close enough. But coming to the point of emailing, sorry to say, but the first lead customers, I just advise anybody else to scrape LinkedIn and email your way up until you have the first 10 customers. I mean, it's all about authenticity. No mass mailings in MailChimp, but just a brief message, 2 sentences that you're interested in what the other side of the table is doing, and you have a perfect solution for what they're doing. And if that's authentic, short, and no bullshit, chances are very likely that you'll have a conversation. So if you then send out 100 emails and you have 10 conversations, you'll have the first few customers, and these are really key. The number one success thing is not press releases or capital, or it's all ersatz and waste of time. The number one thing for you to succeed as a SaaS business owner is reference customers, and there's no other way than to email yourself in and probably going straight to the top.
And in terms of scaling going forward for 2020, 21, how are you thinking? What is one of the challenges maybe you're facing, and how are you tackling growth?
We're based in Ghent, and we're mainly focusing on the areas which we can reach by train, which is UK, which is France. We have a couple of customers in Scandinavia, Germany, Spain. It's all on arm's length, I would say. So we've considered whether we should grow the business further in Europe, which is a very fragmented landscape. In Europe, we have 27 official languages. That's also the number of public service broadcasters, and the number of producers is times 100, and it's all spread across the board. When you look at the market in US, the entire world of television, or 95% of it, is concentrated in New York City. I mean, HBO is building studios in Brooklyn. It's all happening there on a square mile. They're all over there. So in terms of next investment, we will be opening offices in April or May in New York. We will first of all properly finance the company, because this is something we can't do with like we funded the company to date. The Limecraft is cash flow funded, but when we want to open a decent office in New York, that's going to be subject to funding, and we're currently in negotiating with a couple of investment funds in Europe to make that happen. So as soon as we close, we will be active in New York, and that's the way we will grow the company, really. We're the challenger. We compete with big names, well-known names, and the way to challenge those is not by just hiring a sales professional whatsoever. Region per region, we will have to conquer it by landing the first 4 or 5 major deals ourselves. So I will be in New York, or our UK sales director. We will switch places, and we will set up the business ourselves. And after New York, we'll see. Maybe Mumbai, maybe Lagos in Nigeria. Those are like the 3 hotspots worldwide where there is a lot of video production going on.
Do you see any opportunity in the corporate space for your solution?
Already today, I think 25 or 30% of our revenue comes from corporate applications. That's just the beginning of an incredibly emerging market, just the beginning. The interesting about corporate production is that in principle, they are not interested in the latest super duper camera and high dynamic range footage. These guys want mass production. They want just high definition is quite good. And they just want as much content as possible for a reasonable price. So there as well, our offering is very convenient. We're exploring the market with some of the editing facilities that specifically look into the corporate world. So it's an indirect model. We're currently exploring that market, but it's going to grow probably a lot faster than television production, I think.
And are there any specific verticals or applications that you see growing faster than others?
I would like to highlight one specific, that's universities. So due to the same obligation we talked about a couple of minutes earlier, also universities are now obliged to put closed captions on all of their course material, which has been captured by professional cameras. It's a bit cleaned, trimmed, and then they put it online. But we've just had a request for a proposal from a university in UK asking us a quote to put subtitles on 25,000 hours of content per year. Now, that's pretty massive. And if you then just imagine, our business model is brutally simple. It's a unit price per hour of content which we're managing and processing. No per-user fee, no capex, just if you're a small producer and doing no more than 10 hours of content per month, it's going to cost you 30 euro per month, nothing more, nothing less. But if that university is doing 25,000 hours of content per year, now that's sporty, I would say. That's huge in terms of volume. But there is an obligation for them to do so. So with proper marketing, there is a lot of high schools and universities which we will be servicing in the coming 12 months, would be my prediction.
And what's the best way to for people to get in touch with you or follow what you're doing?
Interested people can look at our blog or subscribe to a newsletter on www.limecraft.com. But we're active on social media as well. There's quite some inroads, quite a few inroads there.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.